And we're back on Decent Cities with the president of the Florida Blockchain Business Association, Sam Arms. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me, Joe.
So you've been rolling pretty hard for a while in getting blockchain awareness, growing blockchain awareness in Florida and around Florida, and with the cities and business folks. Let's give us a quick background on the Florida Blockchain Business Association, and we'll go from there to present day.
Yeah, so we were founded in late 2017, early 2018. We were just a group of people who realized at the time that really there was no representation for blockchain and cryptocurrency companies in Florida. At the time, Florida was actually looking at setting up a crypto czar to heavily regulate cryptocurrency, and that kind of got a lot of people worried. We knew we had a big community here, so we said, hey, we need to get together and we need to found something. So I went all over Florida. I attended every major meetup in every major metropolitan area and found people in every major city in Florida and said, hey, let's get organized. And 3 years later, now we've passed 2 bills. We passed the 3rd bill in the House this year, died in the Senate though, but going to pass next year. And now we're going strong. So the Florida community is growing, and now Florida is the crypto blockchain capital of what I say is the Western Hemisphere.
Agreed. Yeah, great opportunity. But it brings me to why. Why did you do that? Why did you decide that needed to happen, and you were the one to do it? What did you see in the blockchain and its future that compelled you?
Yeah, good question. My original background was in government, so I had done work for USS SOCOM out of MacDill. I did a research project for them on crypto. I worked at the State Department in DC. I worked in Tallahassee for a representative. I worked for a lobbying firm here in Florida, and I realized that no one was paying attention to the crypto crowd, and I had been invested in Bitcoin since 2014. And I had met a lot of people in the industry. I've made a lot of connections, and I realized no one in government really understood cryptocurrency or blockchain. And I also realized that no one in cryptocurrency and blockchain really understood government, at least on the state level. So I was kind of forced into it. I approached a bunch of people about, hey, we should probably start doing something along these lines. And they said, well, we don't know how. I was like, oh, okay, well, I do. So I guess here I go. And I just kind of put my best foot forward, and here we are today.
And you mentioned that you had a hand in a couple of bills being passed, the 3rd one incubating. Talk about those bills and what they accomplished and why they were important.
Yeah, so the very first bill that we passed was the creation of a Florida blockchain task force, which was made up of people appointed by the governor, the CFO, Speaker of the House, and Senate President. The goal of which was to simply, one, investigate government use cases for blockchain technology, but then to also investigate what regulations are prohibiting companies from moving here. So how can Florida become a state that not only uses blockchain, but also brings blockchain and cryptocurrency companies to here? The second bill was the creation of a financial technology regulatory sandbox. So we modeled that bill after Arizona and Wyoming. The goal being simply that regulations around this new industry are fairly confusing, not always clear, and different. They're different from agency to agency. And so what some states have done is they've created what's called a sandbox, where you apply to be in this sandbox. And in short, the state guarantees you some sort of protection once you're in that sandbox. So that was the second bill that we passed. The bill that we were working on this year, which passed the House but did not pass the Senate, was a total revamping of our money transmitter laws. So Florida has pretty complicated and confusing money transmission laws, which were further confused and complicated by some legal cases down in Miami, known as the Espinoza case, which I can go in depth on if need be. But in short, our money transmitter laws have made it very annoying and cumbersome from a regulatory perspective for different crypto exchanges to come to Florida and operate down here, although they still do. So we were working on reforming those and making it just way easier for companies to operate here. So it passed the House with unanimous support, but it did not make it through the Senate.
And why do you think that is?
Just politics. Sometimes you run out of time. sometimes politicians don't get along, is the easiest way to say it. The merit of our bill, I think, was really good. We didn't have any complaints about the actual material or substance in our bill, which is why I'm really confident that it will pass this next legislative session.
That's great. So, we look at the different forks that governments can take, or state governments can take when they pass legislation. Wyoming's doing a lot of things that are very crypto friendly. What are some of the key differentiators when it comes to how states will approach? You suspect states will approach crypto and blockchain going forward. The differentiators between who will get it right and who will get it wrong.
That's a really good question. It's a really hard question because one, every state's so different and every state constitution is different. For example, a lot of people say, why don't we copy and paste Wyoming's laws and just bring them to Florida? Because we can't. Even if we want to do what Wyoming's doing, we have to do it in a Florida way. And our bill this year with the money transmitter laws is a perfect example of that. The wording, the definitions are all very peculiar and different than they would be in, say, Wyoming. But it's because we have existing Florida statute that we have to work around. So you see states, I think in general, states want to attract the investments where they see it useful. And I think you're going to see states that are specialized in certain industries try to attract that investment through that industry. So Texas would be an easy example of trying to bring energy, right, and focus on blockchain related projects that are focused with energy, oil, and gas. Wyoming, famously, one of their first startups in their sandbox was a cattle company tracking cattle on the blockchain. Florida, of course, one of the biggest things would be tourism and agriculture, which would be big benefits, right, and use cases for the industry as well. So I think you're going to see states kind of take a nuanced approach, depending on whatever their different sectors are. But then you also have states like New York, famously for their bit license, which have said, we really kind of don't want this business here. Or if we do, we're going to create a large barrier to entry. So it really varies. And then other states, like I talked to various initiatives around the United States, and I know initiatives in Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, South Carolina. They're all doing their own thing, but government moves slow. Different states have different priorities and view things differently. So, sometimes it's not that states don't want to attract a business. Maybe it's just not on the radar, or they just don't see the interest in it yet.
So what are some of the elements though? So if Florida said, yeah, we want to attract crypto business and, we specifically want to attract this flavor of crypto business, how does that express itself in how they change the laws? What are some of the things that they would do to be more attractive to crypto or blockchain based businesses?
So funny enough, companies are moving here despite our regulations already, right? Which is very interesting. So even if we do nothing, Florida is already kind of becoming this crypto capital. A lot of that has to do with the mayor of Miami and his excellent work down in Miami and making Miami the capital of capital. And he's just been fantastic in attracting business. The fact that Florida has stayed open, I think, helped us because what I've noticed is a lot of people actually moved here under the radar from California and New York during the pandemic. And now they're just staying here, right? And a lot of these crypto companies, I've asked them, what brought you to Florida? And they tell me, oh, well, we moved here in March or April of 2020, and then we just decided we're not going to leave, right? Neither of those things have to do with legislation, right? They're kind of like this environment that's already there. So the legislation is almost like an add-on. So for Florida, us fixing our money transmitter laws will be the biggest first step in creating a foundation to where, in my opinion, we'll already be on top of the world. Because people want to be here, right? And people are coming here regardless. A good example is like Wyoming. Wyoming is less populated than my home county of Polk County, right? I think it's less populated than St. Pete, the city, right? So what Caitlin Long and her fellow people in Wyoming did was they said, okay, here's a new attractive market that we're going to latch onto and be forward thinking on so that we can make Wyoming unique and view it as a way to bring business and people to Wyoming. And that's exactly what they did. And there's a lot of people who have moved to Cheyenne or Jackson Hole in the blockchain industry. but they had to create that incentive there and do a certain target market, right? The blockchain cryptos communities to get Wyoming that influx of business. And now they have a very well known name, as they should. They've done an excellent job. Here in Florida, people want to move here, right? We don't have to do much to attract people to want to come here, right? We have the beaches, we have the weather, unless there's a hurricane, right? I like to say we have the weather, but then people spend the summer down here and realize it's not as perfect as they think it is. But people already want to move down here, right? So it's our job to really play defensive in some part and make sure that the Florida legislature doesn't do anything that's going to kill the business environment and companies that are here, then offensive and just making sure that our laws are at least as good as everybody else's.
That makes a lot of sense. So really then just not doing things that make it even harder for money to move. Now, the know your customer elements of it, those are federal. And so those really are going to be in play either way. But then when we look at what Suarez has done, Mayor Suarez has done in Miami, when you're out advocating for the whole state, what have been your strategies for spreading some of the love that's happened for Miami and letting some of the other cities in Florida? Obviously, I'm over on the West Coast in St. Pete and Tampa Bay, and we'd love to draft off of what Miami, the lead that Miami has taken. What are some of the best strategies you've seen for other cities in Florida to keep up?
So that's an interesting question. So the Miami team and the Miami community has been talking to the mayor, I want to say since as early as 2018, is when there was Bitcoin Center Miami opening up. The mayor was there at the ribbon cutting. So the mayor has always been a forward thinker. We've approached mayors in every other major metropolitan area in Florida, and they haven't been there like the mayor of Miami has, partly because I don't think they've realized the potential of the sector and the growth. And it just hasn't been their top priority. So we're hoping that now they kind of see what we're trying to do, and that different mayors from Tampa, St. Pete, Orlando, Sarasota, Jacksonville, the hope is that they would see what's going on in Miami and say, hey, I want a piece of that. I want that to happen in my city as well. But what's been happening in Miami, the mayor has been in touch with his community for a long time. I mean, before Miami blew up in the way that it has, right? He was attending Bitcoin meetups and blockchain meetings. So it'll definitely be hard to replicate. But I think the best thing for leaders and cities to do is start meeting these communities, right? I know a lot of people who invite their local city officials to come to their meetups, and a lot of them don't attend, right? Because they think it's just like any other meetup. So hopefully Miami's a wake-up call, and a lot of these leaders start getting more involved in their local communities on the blockchain crypto level.
And and if you believe, as I do, that crypto is inevitable and blockchain is inevitable, that really shows this as being an incredibly important time. This is the time when all the best real estate is claimed, and we have a light shining on that real estate coming from Miami. And man, if you don't see that and don't at least try to do some work to capture a little of that light here too, I think it's something that'll be something I look back on and regret in 5 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, I just read a LinkedIn report talking about the top 10 cities that claimed tech talent, where tech entrepreneurs were moving to. Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami are in the top 10, right? And Miami, I believe, is either of the Florida cities at the bottom or in third place, right? Jacksonville was first. I think Tampa was second, maybe even Orlando third, and Miami's at the bottom. But Miami's getting all the attention. Why? Because I don't think these other leaders understand what's right beneath them, right? There's all these people here. We just got to activate them.
Sure. And as we turn our attention to the business community, they have their own voices as well. What are you encouraging the business community to do to understand, to grow their own awareness of the potential for blockchain, and to see how important it is in a healthy economy going forward?
Yeah, there's two aspects to that. One, obviously, we do our best to represent blockchain and crypto companies, right? And the ones that are especially, moving here to Florida. And the first part of that is making sure they understand how important being involved in your local community and your government is, right? Um, when you're moving to a state because you like the regulations, those regulations weren't just there; they were created by somebody, and they were created because of somebody, right? So, some of the first activities that I do with anyone who's joining is I have a phone call and I say, this is what we're up to, this is what's going on, and this is what the situation is, right? This is how we can keep Florida the place that you like it to be, the reason you moved here. But then companies that aren't involved in the crypto and blockchain world, we've done various educational seminars, right? I remember, I believe it was 2 years ago, I even met with Publix, and we were talking about blockchain and cryptocurrency with Publix in their corporate offices. We've had various conversations with different companies around Florida, right? Simply just educational, where we'll match a partner in our organization who maybe has expertise in the field that they're looking for, and say, hey, here's someone we think you should meet with if you want to talk and educate yourself and kind of get going on this. The business community is very interested, right? But the industry is still so new and still so changing. If anyone's risk averse, they still want to see how it develops, right? So that's kind of, people are ready to dive in, but I'm not sure they're ready to dive in and use a product. You have a lot of people who are simply working on proofs of concept, right? Maybe that have been 2, 3 years now, right? Maybe going on a fourth year. Because to actually implement this, it's such a game changer. And sometimes it so structurally changes your business model that now, as a company, you're like, okay, we actually, to implement this, have to completely reorient how we do business. And that's a lot tougher than saying, oh, we're going from Windows 10 to Windows 11,
Right.
right?
So when I think of the barriers for the average business or average politician to really understand the space, I see. I mean, there's some pretty massive paradigm shifts. One, going to trustless decentralization, in a world that is driven by centralized control. Value. Saying that some ink on paper, some paint on paper, some paint on canvas has this huge amount of value, but yet a digital version of that, I don't understand it. How can you have a currency, that's an NFT example, or how can you have a currency that's not backed by a government? And obviously, just with a little bit of digging, those things break down pretty quickly, right? Because the Mona Lisa is just ink on canvas, and it represents something in rarity and authenticity and value, and in paper, so I think we printed. Digitally printed 1/4 of all the currency that's ever existed in the last year alone. Created it, sort of out of thin air, long off the gold standard. So there's those hurdles. There's simply the new, the newness of the technology, and then of course there's been a lot of fear mongering around the use of it by terrorists and drug dealers and things like that, which certainly happens, but it happens with fiat currency as well. So when you kind of break down the biggest hurdles for the average business person or politician to overcome, do any of those four kind of stand out as the one that is the hardest?
No, not necessarily. I think the newest issue you're seeing right now is the energy debate around Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I think that's the new bad guy. I don't even hear much about money laundering anymore. It's actually energy usage, um, which, in my personal opinion, is government gearing up to get ready to put some kind of energy tax on cryptocurrency, right? You can imagine an administration coming out and saying, we're going to tax 10% of all Bitcoin earnings because you're polluting the environment, right? That's where I kind of see that going. And that's the current narrative, even though I heavily disagree with that narrative, and that Bitcoin is more energy intensive than any other currency out in the world, actually, especially if you're looking at the US dollar and the infrastructure to support the US dollar, or gold for that matter. So every day there's a new narrative and there's a new hurdle to overcome. It'll be environmental today. A year from now, it can be something completely different. The internet funny enough, is it just has so much information that, you know, people will go and Google search and they still won't be satisfied and they'll be more confused, right? Because they can read whatever they want, but they have no idea who to trust. You don't know what's a hit piece, what's an opinion piece. So, I still do a lot of hands-on presentations where I'm driving and meeting with groups of CEOs or founders or politicians where I'm giving my own presentation because they don't trust anything they read on the internet, which is well and good, right? And even if I give them trusted resources, right, the industry changes so much that what I'm telling you today could not be true tomorrow, right? So it's ever changing. It's a hard question to answer, right? Because tomorrow, for all I know, the environmental narrative will be solved, and then we'll be moving on to something else.
All right. Yeah, I forgot about the environmental nerve. So that means you'll have your work cut out for you for the foreseeable future. And to that end, what do you expect to see and do for the remainder of the year at the Florida Blockchain Business Association?
Well, obviously, committee weeks for the next legislative session start as early, I believe, as September, October. So we're going to be gearing up to make sure that our bill this year does pass, which when it passes, and my hope is that it will, Florida will just have another be on its way to becoming the place to be for these companies. It is already, but I think it's just going to further cement that. Also, just all the people who have moved here. Right now, one of our biggest tasks is integrating the newcomers with the current Florida community and kind of absorbing that power and that bandwidth, right? And saying, okay, you moved to Miami, you moved to Palm Beach, you moved to Sarasota. Let me find some people I can hook you up with so you can start building that community, building that synergy, and then let's get you involved in the political world, right? And start channeling that energy. That's taken a lot of our time because so many people have moved here, a lot of whom we don't even know that we're finding out practically every other week. Oh, you didn't know this company moved here? Yeah, no, you need to reach out to them. So that will probably take us, till the end of 2021, right, and maybe even into 2022 to kind of figure that out and really get those people involved.
Well, when we do succeed and we are the world leader in the crypto space, will be in no small part due to you. Thank you for your leadership at the association, and we'll look forward to supporting you as best we can going forward.
I really appreciate that, Joe, and happy to help your organization. I'm glad you guys are a part of what we're doing. We need all the help we can get.